Coming up on Lawmakers, a bill restricting the powers of eminent domain passes out of Senate committee. Governor Sonny Perdue's Land Conservation Act clears another legislative hurdle. And a FlexAuto lane proposal to help relieve traffic congestion is gaining attention. Those stories and more are next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Thursday, February 3rd. Here are your anchors in Wandy Lawson and Gerald Bryant.
Good evening, everyone. Also on tonight's broadcast, legislation is introduced in the Senate to limit children's access to violent video games.
And the impact of Hope Scholarship changes on the state's technical colleges. But our top story tonight, legislation to clarify eminent domain. Well, talk about legislation involving eminent domain has caused quite a stir in the media over the past few days. Much of the discussion is about Senate Bill 5, which we will discuss next in our program, but there's also Senate Bill 86, which passed the Senate Judiciary Committee today. David Zelski joins us live from the Capitol with details. David.
Well, thanks, Gerald. Senate Judiciary Chair Preston Smith believes this eminent domain legislation should not worry the public, but there was some concern from City of Atlanta government members who weren't clear on how this bill would affect some of their current operations.
The Atlanta Development Authority, one of the downtown development authorities that was referenced earlier, does use the power of eminent domain and has used it in a number of instances. And we're afraid because we're unclear as to what the legitimate redevelopment efforts would be, and what efforts, for instance, that we've engaged in the past we would be able to do, what efforts we've engaged in that we would now not be able to do. And we just aren't asking that the bill not move forward, but are perhaps asking that there be a little bit more time to work out some of the ambiguity in the bill.
We wanted to make sure that eminent domain is never used to take private property away from private landowners for some economic development purpose. The use of eminent domain is supposed to be limited to very specific reasons, and it's for some very specific governmental public purpose. And even that is a little controversial, but we wanted to make sure with this bill that power is never abused and it's never used to take a landowner's property away from them for some private purpose.
Now, Senate Bill 86 did pass committee unanimously, but Chairman Smith added that changes to deal with concerns like those of the City of Atlanta should be considered as the bill moves forward. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, David. Well, we mentioned Senate Bill 5. That has become a controversial bill that critics are saying would make it easier for government to seize private property. I talked with SB 5 sponsor Senator Dan Moody, who says that the real intent is to build public-private partnerships to build projects the public needs.
Gerald, it's real simple. This is intended to be an alternative to accelerate the availability of new public infrastructure. There's lots of opportunities throughout the state where we could do some very innovative construction projects that would not cost as much money as they would today, and that's what this is all about.
Most of the criticism of this has centered around eminent domain, and that is the government's right to acquire property when deemed necessary. In your judgment, has this criticism have any foundation for it, or have people panicked with no reason?
I think people have panicked because that is a significant issue. And Senate Bill 86, which just passed out of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate today, deals with that. And I'm tickled to death that that passed, and we'll get it on the floor of the Senate. I co-sponsored that with Senator Chapman, and that's great. Senate Bill 5 has no intention of dealing with the eminent domain issue. It simply states that if there is an issue there, that the current law would prevail. And if I may just read a quick sentence out of the bill. This is on page 13, paragraph 11. The power of eminent domain shall not be delegated to any operator under any agreement executed pursuant to this chapter. So Senate Bill 5 doesn't deal with eminent domain. It simply says if there's something out there that has to be followed, then this bill will deal with that according to current law.
That addresses one of the points that the critics were making. What about the matter that we keep hearing of secrecy, that private landowners wouldn't have enough time to oppose their land being taken? What about secrecy and low bids not necessarily being accepted for these projects?
With respect to secrecy, you can't see this on television, but there's a pretty detailed explanation of how the bidding process takes place, and there are several stages there that people can find out about that opportunity. With respect to the low bid aspect of how government has traditionally purchased anything from pencils to waste treatment facilities, that is an archaic approach to how we should be looking at what I call the total life cycle cost of a facility. And I'll repeat that. The total life cycle cost is the cradle-to-grave cost of a facility, which would include the design, the financing, the construction, and the ongoing operation of that facility over its useful life. And you don't want to take the lowest price always, because some fly-by-night outfit can just drive by Georgia, and we end up having to accept a low bid for something that we need to use for 25 or 30 years.
And Senator Moody tells us there will be hearings on SB 5 in the near future.
Governor Perdue's Land Conservation Act is one step closer to becoming law. That bill passed out of the Senate Natural Resources Committee today. It passed out of the House on Monday. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman is live with more. Jesse.
When one of the Governor's Land Conservation Act, or House Bill 98, is on the fast track back to his desk. The bill passed unopposed on the floor of the House, and today not a word was spoken nor a vote cast against it. The bill is sponsored by Representative Rich Golick, but Senator Chip Pearson presented it to the Senate Committee on Natural Resources today. Here is a sample of some of his presentation and others' praise for the bill.
It's of significant importance not only for my district in particular, but the state of Georgia, in lieu of encroachment of development and pressures upon us as far as affording to set aside agricultural, green space, natural resources, and historical sites.
Georgia River Network supports the Land Conservation Act. The plan would favor projects that protect ecologically important lands, a key factor in protecting the many benefits that rivers provide. The bill also favors partnerships where many entities join together to protect a piece of land.
GMA and Georgia cities welcome the opportunity to be full partners with the state and the private sector in Georgia in the effort to protect Georgia's conservation land.
The Georgia Department of Natural Resources fully supports this Land Conservation Act as an outstanding initiative. We've worked very closely with the Governor's office in crafting this legislation. We feel very comfortable that we can function in all the areas of our capacity that is addressed for this bill, and I personally look forward to serving on the council.
Now, there were some minor amendments to the bill that correct some legal language, including making land transactions line up with some real estate law, but in a nutshell, it's smooth sailing so far for the Land Conservation Act. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thanks for that update, Jesse. Well, in his weekly press briefing, House Speaker Glenn Richardson today responded to the Democratic claims that they've been shut out from the budget process.
Well, you know, they must say that to y'all. They don't say that to me. I talk to them, but they don't come up to me and tell me that. So, first of all, if they've got a complaint, maybe they ought to direct it to me, and we'll see if we can handle it. If it is, in fact, a complaint and not just an attempt to get a little FaceTime and some ink on paper. We had that process out there for those hearings. We announced, and interestingly enough, that, you know, I heard at one point someone complain that we canceled that week of hearings. Democratic leadership had decided to do that before we won the election. We just simply kept the same schedule they had.
Speaker Richardson said he intends to bring the governor's initiative allowing faith-based organizations to receive state funds to the House floor this month. He said the change to the state's constitution would actually bring Georgia into compliance with some of its funding.
As we pointed out last year, we're continuing to this day to fund organizations in apparent possible violation of the Constitution that are faith-based organizations to do state services. The Presbyterian Church over here, last time I checked, was getting some money for the homeless shelter. Now, maybe we cut that off. Somebody have to correct me on that.
I spoke with Pastor David Haskins at Central Presbyterian Church today. He told me that the homeless programs that are operated at that church are operated by a nonprofit organization that is actually separate from the church. Speaker Richardson is also one of the sponsors of a plan to relieve traffic congestion by allowing motorists to use emergency lanes during rush hours. Several of the bill's supporters responded to the Department of Transportation claims that the infrastructure for the plan does not exist.
It's not an instantaneous thing where we could drop a stripe out there today and start driving on it. Many of those shoulders have to be beefed up. Many of them have the ridges cut in them to wake up a sleepy driver. But, you know, we feel it'd be a lot more economical, and we're asking the Department of Transportation to look at that. And I think we pretty much have the agreement they're going to evaluate it and take a look at it and see if it's feasible in those areas.
Asked about the safety of removing emergency lanes from the highways, the bill sponsors said that a recent trip to Washington gave them the information they need to demonstrate the plan's safety.
Well, talking to the gentleman and the ladies in Washington, they said it's no different than somebody in a center lane that breaks down and traffic goes around. If you do have that person that runs out of gas, the car breaks down, traffic's just going to go around. If you have the right signage and there is an accident and you do need that lane open, change that sign that we have up, the signs that we do put up, and declare that the lane is closed. So.
But truly, if it's truly an emergency, we're very blessed in Georgia because beside most of our emergency lanes, we have grass. If it's truly an emergency, pull in the grass.
In other news, it has been almost a year since the Georgia General Assembly passed new laws regarding the Hope Scholarship. Lawmakers Chris Knight joins us live from the Capitol with more on how changes to Hope may have affected enrollment at Georgia's technical colleges. Chris.
Well, Gerald, prior to the changes to Hope, technical college students could take an unlimited number of credit hours. But this year, those credit hours have decreased, and so has the enrollment of technical college students.
Keisha Weaver aspires to be in front of the classroom.
I hope to be a teacher.
Alethea Bryant plans to enter the business world.
I would like to have my own business.
Both students attend one of Georgia's 34 technical colleges and receive the Hope Scholarship.
Well, it's really important to me because without it I probably wouldn't be able to go to school.
But that may be the case for some students. A new law that passed last year during the General Assembly now caps the number of hours Hope covers for technical colleges.
And when you just have an unlimited ability to take continuous courses, when the funds are available, that's fine. But when the funds are depleting, you need to put some limitations on that.
While Keisha isn't affected by the new limit on hours, some of her fellow classmates are.
So they've really had to just tighten up and take what they need.
In fact, enrollment at technical colleges in Georgia have dropped since the changes have been enacted.
In the past year, our enrollment decreased about nearly 500 students from the fall of 2003 to the fall of 2004.
And across the state?
Probably about 5%.
Technical and Adult Education Commissioner Michael Vollmer served on the Hope Commission who made the recommendations to the governor.
So the impact of the cap probably had some impact. The other thing was our high school enrollment decreased this year from about 8,000 students to roughly 6,000 students. And some of that had to do with the Hope cap, too.
And a Legislative Oversight Committee has been created to monitor these changes. Reporting live, I'm Chris Knight for Lawmakers.
Good story, Chris. Thank you.
The House today approved a measure to provide motor vehicle records to insurance support organizations. Because he works in the insurance industry, Representative Maxwell questioned the necessity of the legislation.
If a clean record comes back, they don't need to request the full MVR. If it doesn't come back, then the insurance support organizations and insurers already have the right to get that full information for accurate and timely underwriting.
Okay, I use this in my business every day, and when we type in and get an MVR report, it comes back. If there's nothing on the report, it just shows clean now.
That is correct.
And if there's driving history, violation history, it's going to give us a breakdown of all that. But there's also a 1-800 number we can call through the DMV to just find a valid or not valid license, and we use that quite often for, people that we're initially screening. I'm just confused as why we're trying to do this. I've got some confusion in my mind.
Mr. Speaker, if I may, you're absolutely right, Representative Maxwell. What is allowed today is insurance companies or insurance agents have access to this limited information. Insurance support organizations do not. Some of the larger insurance companies contract with insurance support organizations and do this electronically from a desktop. When the law was originally changed, I believe the intent was to allow everyone access to the limited record like you have out of your office, and that's what this legislation seeks to do.
House Bill 151 passed by a vote of 164 to 0. It now moves to the Senate.
Senator Doug Stoner has filed 2 bills that would seek to curb the sale of violent and sexually explicit video games to children under 17 years old. One bill would require stores that sell the games to post a video game rating system in the store. The other bill would not allow children under the age of 17 to purchase a violent game without a parent.
Well, I think any parent, and in fact, a lot of times parents themselves are not aware of the rating system themselves. In fact, I haven't played hardly many of these games myself. I've seen some of them. I've heard about them. Very explicit. I think the parents need to be made aware of that. And unfortunately, the industry hasn't stepped forward to do that here in the state of Georgia, making sure that that rating system is displayed prominently. And I think it's just we need to make sure, because we do this with other material in the state. I see no difference. It's just a different form of electronics. It's a video game instead of a video or a magazine. That we do the same thing with that, so that know that their children can't just walk into a store. A 12-year-old can't go buy a mature-rated video game.
Some other bills of interest. Another sales tax holiday weekend is in the works. House Bill 5 passed the House Ways and Means Subcommittee today. It creates an exemption from sales tax beginning on July 28th and ending on midnight July 31st. As in past years, school supplies, clothing, and computers are among items exempt from state sales tax. While that bill might make parents happy, there's another House bill that students might like. It would mandate that Georgia school systems begin class no earlier than the last Monday in August. If it passes, it would take effect this year. Some school system officials say they'll fight passage of that legislation.
Now that tort reform has passed the state Senate, the House has created a special committee to consider the controversial legislation. Representative Tom Rice explains the need for the new Civil Justice Committee.
The reason there's a special committee on this because the Speaker felt that there are a wide variety of interests at play here, and citizens from all over the state ought to be equally represented. It would normally have gone to the Judiciary Committee. And the Judiciary Committee is primarily made up of attorneys from across the state, and their focus could be a little narrower and not as representative of the people who are on the committee.
Insurance Commissioner John Oxendine says tort reform is necessary to bring more malpractice insurance carriers into the state.
The largest medical malpractice insurer in Texas has actually taken 2 rate decreases since civil litigation reform was passed, totaling 16.4%. Since civil litigation reform was passed, or at least took effect in Texas, a total of 13 new insurance entities are now writing medical malpractice in the state of Texas.
Among those testifying today was Romel Laxon, who opposes the legislation. Laxon says his wife died as a result of medical malpractice.
It's so easy to blame the victim. And the reason for that is you don't hear their voices here. Who are the people that are speaking on this list? A number of them are probably representatives of medical lobbyists, a number of big corporations that have something to gain from this. So the voices of victims are missing.
The Civil Justice Committee continues its deliberations tomorrow morning.
Meanwhile, 2 bills dealing with the Department of Human Resources and the Department of Family and Children's Services passed the Senate Judiciary Committee today. House Bill 52 provides negotiations for delinquent child support reimbursement, and House Bill 53 aims to speed up the legitimation process of a child, a process that currently takes up to 4 months. David Zelski had a chance to discuss these bills with Senate Judiciary Chairman Preston Smith, who sponsors both.
One of the bills allows the legitimation process to be condensed to 1 step instead of 3 steps. Georgia is the only state in the nation where you have to file 3 separate actions to accomplish that. First, you establish paternity, and then legitimation, and then you deal with visitation child support issues. And this will allow the paternity and the visitation to be done at once by the consent of mom and dad, or in the same hearing when you do paternity. So that's very important to foster that relationship with the father and the children. And the second bill allows fathers who owe child support to come back into the system and pay that child support, and allows the department to negotiate a process to reward good payments and get them paying current. And that, we believe, will be very important to keeping the families closer in touch and keeping those payments to the custodial parents.
And I think, as Senator Harp said, there is a huge debt out there. I think $1.5 billion.
What you see is some fathers or non-custodial spouses coming back into the system and realizing that they may owe the state $30,000 or $40,000 because the other other parent has been on some sort of public assistance, and that has become their debt. And because of that, they stay away from the system so that they don't owe that money, and then they don't pay any child support at all. So this bill allows the department to work with them to settle and negotiate claims and bring them back in and keep those payments current.
Again, both of those bills were given a due pass and now head to Senate rules. Well, rainy weather didn't prevent nearly 20 transit buses from visiting the Capitol today. The visit is part of the Georgia Transit Authority's Legislative Day. They were joined by a transportation expert from Georgia Tech. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman has more.
All roads lead to Atlanta. At least today they do. The Georgia Transit Authority showed off some of the finest buses from member lines. They also hosted a breakfast where they got to voice some of their legislative concerns.
We're trying to get some tax relief on fuels we pay, or taxes we pay on motor fuels. Since most of us are government authorities, we want to try and not have to pay the taxes back to the state. We've also got some financial concerns. We're trying to get some operating assistance and capital assistance. Georgia is one of the few states in the nation that does not support its transit systems with operating assistance, and in the longer term we'd like to see that changed.
Of course, buses are part of the solution to the state's ever-increasing congestion problems. At a joint transportation committee meeting today, Dr. Michael Meyer, a professor of civil engineering from Georgia Tech, discussed some of Georgia's traffic woes.
Congestion, I think, on our road system, on our transit systems, on our aviation systems, we're expecting tremendous growth, as I said, in population and employment. And how do we deal with that means we need to have funding. And I think that, in a nutshell, is really the critical issue.
Meyer adds that having varied funding sources is key to long-term solutions. From the Capitol, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
The Georgia Campaign for Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention held workshops today to make legislators and child advocates aware of the role that we all play in helping teens make safe decisions.
We are still 46th among states with a rate of 56 births for every 1,000 girls. This really compares with a national rate of 43 per 1,000. So again, a gap, more work to do. And over 16,000 girls ages 10, and I hate to even say that number, ages 10 to 19 give birth every year, and 3,500 of those are repeat births.
Commissioner Walker suggests that these rates could be decreased if extracurricular and academic achievement were stressed, teens encouraged to develop goals and begin working. She also says communities must do more to ensure that children have the care of responsible adults.
Teen pregnancy rates in the United States have dropped to all-time lows, but Georgia is still ranked near the bottom. Rates for white teens here are significantly higher than elsewhere. Latino teen rates are actually on the rise, and even though African Americans are achieving the greatest gains in this area, GCAP has had to broaden its definition of pregnancy prevention for blacks.
African Americans represent only 15% of U.S. teenagers. However, they represent 65% of all new AIDS cases reported in that population among teens. And so, to me, that's a crisis of amazing proportions.
Senator Don Thomas, a physician and longtime supporter of GCAP, says pregnancy prevention is a good investment.
Certainly, as chairman of Health and Human Services, I have opportunity to work with you, and I certainly will help in any way that I can with funding, because every bit of money spent through your organization goes for a real good cause, and I think it saves money.
As for strategies to reduce teen pregnancy, Commissioner Walker says a combination of risk prevention and abstinence education is in order.
We believe at DHR that government should be a resource to families and what they believe and how they think about life, not a substitute for those families. So then it becomes our job to figure out how do we support families to support their loved ones, particularly their adolescent loved ones.
Go Girl Go is an initiative launched by the Women's Sports Foundation in conjunction with the Atlanta Women's Foundation to increase the physical activity of Atlanta girls. Go Girl Go was on hand at the Capitol today. Yasmin Neal has more.
Go Girl Go Atlanta was the theme at today's event. Go Girl Go founder, tennis legend Billie Jean King, spoke on behalf of the organization, along with Go Girl Go president, Olympic gymnast and gold medalist Dominique Dawes.
I'm very happy to be back here, and I consider this one of my second homes.
Representatives Kathy Ash and Stephanie Stuckey also showed their feelings in support of Go Girl Go.
The Sports Equity Act
That was an act that was designed to make sure that girls in Georgia have an equal opportunity to be participants in athletics.
I'm happy to be here today with representatives of the Atlanta Women's Foundation and the Women's Sports Foundation and to read part of House Resolution 134.
The Go Girl Go program was started by the Women's Sports Foundation. The goal of the program really is to get 1 million girls in the Atlanta area active, getting them off the couch, getting them away from the computer, and getting them involved in different sports and or physical fitness programs.
During the Go Girl Go Atlanta Week, over 50 different free events have been scheduled throughout Atlanta, and the organization hopes to have the participation of companies and viewers like you to assist with the success of this initiative. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Yasmin Neal.
First Lady Mary Perdue announced today that her Our Children campaign will be recognizing civic organizations who qualify as champions for children, and they're taking care of children who have been abused or neglected. David Zelski has that story.
The First Lady invited representatives of 3 civic groups to come to her home this morning.
The Smyrna Optimist Club, the Georgia Elks Association, and the Junior Service League of Americas.
Ms. Perdue says that with help from organizations such as these 3, Georgia's foster care situation has improved since her husband took office.
I'm really beginning to see people who do know more and more about children in state custody across the state, and that is very gratifying to me. What I want to do is tell people, there are ways to get involved. You can help. You can make a difference in your own community with the children that will grow up and become the adults in your community.
We are really honored to be associated with the First Lady's Our Children campaign. It's gratifying to know that the abused and neglected children of Georgia have you, Mrs. Perdue, as their champion. And it's particularly heartwarming to know that you and Governor Perdue have made personal choices in your life that have set such a fine example for all of us in behalf of these children.
By the time the children are received by the Department of Family Children Services, most often they've been through enough, and they deserve a stable living situation.
There are already 20 corporate champions and 19 faith champions in the Our Children campaign, a campaign Ms. Perdue says continues to gain momentum with the addition of these civic organizations. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm David Zelski.
Well, the House took a moment this morning to congratulate Representative David Casas on the latest addition to his family.
The message says that he wanted to announce to you that he and his wife had a baby boy this morning at 8 a.m. I've never quite understood this statistic, but everybody always wants to know this. 7 pounds, 5 ounces, and 33 inches long. And I want somebody to explain to me why that matters. Like, what are we going to do, change it?
Actually, Speaker Richardson probably should have changed that stat. The note that he was given was incorrect. Little Jonathan David Casas is actually 19.5 inches long. I'm sure his mother Ann is very relieved about that. Congratulations, Representative Casas.
One long, skinny baby. Be sure and tune in to Georgia Week in Review tomorrow night. This week, host Susan Hoffman talks with Corrections Commissioner James Donald and Juvenile Justice Commissioner Albert Murray. That's Georgia Week in Review tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Coming up next on Georgia Public Broadcasting, Georgia Outdoors introduces intercity children to camping and exploring. That's next here on GPB.
That's our program for this, the 12th Legislative Day of the Georgia General Assembly. Thanks for joining us. I'm Wendy Lawson.
I'm Gerald Bryant. See you Monday.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.